Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking around for this next session. I'm Dan Murphy from CNBC, and very pleased to be sitting alongside Mr. Antonaldo Neves, the CEO of Etihad Airways. So welcome to the program, and thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for having us.
So last time you and I worked together was actually only a few months ago, and we were talking about the enormous transformation that Etihad Airways has been on. A $7 billion program to expand routes, upgrade the fleet, and to essentially build out the economic contribution that the airline has in the UAE and in Abu Dhabi specifically. Just update us, Antonaldo, where do we stand on that transformation effort today?
So, the company is at the same time growing and expanding margins. So over the past 5 years, I mean, the company has been improving a lot, not only on the economic side, the sustainability side, right? The economic sustainability side, but also on the passenger side, the customer experience side. So the airline in 2022, for instance, was carrying 10 million passengers. This year, we're going to do probably about 19 million passengers. So that's about 80 to 90% growth in only 2 years. But at the same time, margins are expanding, and we just published our results. And we delivered about $370 million, $1.4 billion, 1.4 billion dirhams in profit. So the company is at the same time investing and improving customer service, bringing more people to Abu Dhabi, and carry more people across the globe. So in a good shape, a lot to do. As you said, we have to invest $7 billion in the next 4 to 5 years. I mean, the multiplier effect in aviation is about 3.5. I would imagine that in a place like emerging countries or in a place like Abu Dhabi, that number is probably about 4 to 5. So we're talking about a massive contribution to the economy.
One of the other things we also speak about is that multiplier effect that you were talking about as well. I was actually on a flight from Doha to Abu Dhabi last night and passed through the magnificent new airport as well. One of the things that was announced on board the aircraft was the fact that you can actually use your ticket stub to get discounts at attractions around Abu Dhabi and the UAE. And I thought that was quite an ingenious move, actually, also acting as the economic multiplier. So when you look at the overall contribution that the airline makes to the economy here, not just from a trade and tourism perspective, but from a GDP perspective, what do we see, and how do you see that growing in the years to come?
So when the airline grows, right, we hire. So this year we are hiring 2,500 people, right, and highly qualified individuals. I mean, a pilot can make up to, I mean, on average, our pilots are making $150,000, $200,000 per year, right? So that's a lot of expense that comes to the economy. But as important as that, I mean, as we grow, we bring more tourists to Abu Dhabi, right? But we also help Abu Dhabi better connect to the world. I mean, the capital of capital, right, needs connectivity so that people can come, people can go and have meetings. I mean, I'm really pleased to see that we had Formula One during the weekend, right? And we had people from all over the globe. And people coming from New York on our 380s, coming from Paris on our 380s, coming from London on our 380s. I mean, they tell, look, this is the best experience ever, right? And we want to make sure that we keep coming and we keep enjoying that experience.
Indeed. Maybe just a quick show of hands. Who actually flew here to be here at Abu Dhabi Finance Week? Excellent. A few people. Who flew on Etihad? Very good. Okay, Antonaldo's happy. He's making money, at least maybe a little bit in the room. When you think about the broader economic contribution, though, talk to me about the role of technology as well. This is something that Etihad has also been actively investing in. How are you going to utilize technology and invest in technology to enable that economic diversification driven by the airline?
One of the key aspects of any airline in the world is the way you manage your pricing, right? Etihad has been investing a lot over the past almost 4 years on we don't call artificial intelligence in the industry, but in the end it's artificial intelligence, right? I mean, algorithms to better price and to make sure that we take all the opportunities that we have. So let me give you an example, right? Before COVID, 2018, 2017, Etihad was flying like 75% load factors, 77% load factors, and our unit revenue was probably about 50% lower than what it is today, right? Today we're flying about 87% load factors, and our unit revenue is doing well, right? And helping a lot our margin expansion program. But this is only possible with technology, right? Today, we change our prices in the system thousands of times per day, right? We have a very good, I would say, predictive system to forecast demand for all the ONDs, origin destinations that we have. And based on demand and based on the supply that you find in the world, I mean, we automatically update prices. Of course, there is human intervention, but in the end, we have algorithms running behind the scenes that they learn how the customers are reacting to price changes. And they propose thousands of price changes up and down throughout the day. So AI is an important tool for us. And we are becoming, I would say, one of the best in the region in terms of technology to price.
So what underpins your pricing strategy in 2025 when you especially consider some of the macroeconomic factors influencing the aviation industry today? What will determine how much you'll have to charge?
I mean, it goes hand in hand with supply, right? I mean, next year we're adding 10 new destinations. We're going to be adding about 22 planes. We grew 40%, 23. We're growing 35% this year. Next year is going to be about 20%. To give you an understanding of how important supply is to pricing, I mean, this year we're growing 35% and our unit price is going down. Every time in the industry, right, you add capacity. Even if you have supply coming, I mean, prices tend to go down, right, by a factor of 1 to 3. And next year, it's not going to be different. We're going to be adding capacity again, 20%. And especially in Europe and Southeast Asia. So 80% of the capacity that we're going to add the next year is going to be actually not in the new destinations, in the destinations that we already serve. So today we have the ability to offer not only those 2 a.m. flights that we had in the past to Europe, for instance, but we also have 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. flights, which are very, very convenient for people that are traveling for tourism, just an example, right? And you can see today, because of that incremental capacity, you can find great deals on Etihad in the morning bank, because it's a bank that we're building. So, I mean, if you buy in advance and you can find, I mean, times that are with less demand, you're going to be able to find great deals.
One of the other things we often hear, just given the state of the industry today, is that prices have gone up, but that's also an issue of supply, as you say. A lot of the carriers aren't able to get those aircraft from the aircraft manufacturers because of the supply chain issues that we've seen unfold post-COVID and a number of other factors through the course of the last few years. So how do you see the cost environment also shaping up? We've spoken about your pricing strategy. Would you say cost pressures within the aviation industry are building, or are they easing now?
So on average, they're building. If you go and see unit costs in Europe, unit costs in the US, going up year on year. I mean, very few airlines in the world are reducing costs, not only because of inflation pressure, especially in labor, right? And also a little bit in catering and handling, which is linked to labor, right? But the only way to keep costs under control is by becoming more efficient. So we're lucky. I mean, Etihad, 2 years in a row, our unit cost is down 8% year on year, 8% and then 8% again, because we actually added a lot of capacity, right? And by doing that, we actually not only reduced our unit costs by having better ability to negotiate bigger volumes, right? But also by diluting fixed costs, right? At the same time, investing in the product. So Etihad is one of the few carriers in the world that is at the same time improving Net Promoter Score, improving customer satisfaction, and reducing unit costs. This is not going to happen next year at the same pace. Next year, we believe it's going to be about 2% to 1% lower unit costs because of the 20% growth that we expect next year. But I mean, it's a big challenge. I mean, there are no planes in the market. I mean, we are planning to bring our new planes in the first half of next year, but they're delayed to the second half. So it's a big challenge. And I think, I mean, the OEMs, they really need to cover that gap, right? Because in the end, I mean, it's not the case here in our network, but in most of the places in the world, unit prices, right, are going up.
And just given the state of the industry as well, what is your assessment for 2025? What should we expect?
I mean, I think the industry is going to keep growing, right? The industry is really much linked to GDP. So if you go to mature economies, it's about 1 time GDP. So GDP in the US is coming very strong. So you should expect the industry to grow because GDP is going to grow this year. In regions like where we are today, which you have a lot of space for the industry to grow, I mean, you should expect 2 times GDP. So I would say that the industry in our region, right, including not only the Middle East, but also the Indian subcontinent, is probably going to be growing by 10% next year. That's our expectation. And Etihad is probably going to be growing 2 times of that. So we expect growth coming next year.
And India will be a core focus for you?
Oh yeah, we doubled the capacity in India in the past year, right? We added about 70%, not double, more capacity into India. And it's a very important market for us. I mean, number 1 visitors, tourists to Abu Dhabi is coming from India, and Etihad is a big part of that. Through the partnerships we have with DCT, we're able to improve our stopover program. It's doing extraordinarily well. I mean, we're doing about 3 times more tourists to Abu Dhabi in the stopover than last year, and India is a big component of that.
I also have to ask you, because we are at Abu Dhabi Finance Week, there's a lot of capital allocators in the room, people who are taking more than a passing interest in the world of finance. You and I have spoken a lot about Etihad's capital market activities and the potential to see an IPO, of which you'll be guided by the shareholder. But what should we expect next year and in the years to come when it comes to Etihad's own financing requirements?
I mean, Etihad is in a very strong position, right? It's been 4 or 5 years under the leadership of ADQ. And throughout this period, the company has deleveraged a lot. I mean, one of the most important things in an airline is to have a strong balance sheet. Dr. Yap was mentioning here how important it is to be financially viable, right? And Etihad today has one of the best leverage ratios in the world. But as important as that, I mean, as we look forward, right, this $7 billion that we need to invest in capital, $2 billion is already paid for, right, because we bought some planes, and they're paid for. And the remaining $5 billion, I mean, it's coming directly from our cash flow generation. So the airline is generating about $1.4 billion per year in cash flow. So, I mean, we're pretty much in very good shape. So we're going to be further deleveraging the airline over the next 5 to 7 years and growing at the same time, which is very unique. I don't know any other airline in the world that is in such a sweet position as Etihad today in terms of balance sheet and the ability to invest.
Absolutely fascinating. Okay, we are out of time, so we'll leave it there. Antonaldo, safe flying. Thank you so much for all of the conversations this year.
Always
we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.